I hate Windows, but I have to use Windows because a lot of the apps that I am more efficient and more productive with are on Windows, like Vegas Pro and PowerPoint and gaming and streaming in general. APB Stream Channel, link down below, go subscribe. I don't hate Windows for its functionality. I don't even hate a lot of the UI changes that Windows 11 has. I'm probably one of the few people who actually like the curved corners or even the center taskbar. I don't hate Windows because of the apps made for it. The apps made for Windows are great. A lot of games run natively on Windows because Windows is the majority OS, and especially the majority OS of all the gamers out there. I still daily drive Windows on my main gaming and editing rig. This video is made under Windows 11. I still have 10 on my system so that I can go back in case 11 screwed me with some stupid updates or something. So Windows works when it works. When it doesn't, it's horrible. But that's not the reason why I hate it. The reason why I hate Windows is because Windows is the kind of OS that is designed for people like me. As in, people who have enough disposable income to afford a good rig. Anyone else who uses low-tier PCs and laptops are gonna be left behind. The work PC that my workplace had is running terribly on Windows. It was running an i3 6th Gen Skylake. That was released in 2015. It's not even a decade old. And that's why I hate Windows. They're getting more and more elitist. I hate Windows when they're pretty much forcing people to upgrade to their brand new OS and stop giving any sorts of updates on any of their older OSs, even though there are lots and lots of older PCs or laptops out there that run much better on the older OS than the new OS. You are forced to upgrade to Windows 11 until Microsoft stops supporting Windows 10 at 2025. That's still a long way to go, but boy, I absolutely despise that. This is the HP Mini 110. I bought this because it's actually my childhood laptop and I got it again just for nostalgia. This thing can barely run Windows 7. It can't even play YouTube or any sorts of media properly. The emulation experience is a mixed bag. The only thing that it's good at is to take notes, and that's why it's called the Notebook. Surprisingly, Unreal Tournament 99 somehow managed to run alright, so I'll give it that. And all of that was on 7. On a Samsung SSD. On Windows 10, it's gonna be even worse. Windows is pretty much screwing over anyone who uses potatoes like this. For certain people, potatoes like this is the only thing that they have and the only thing that they can afford in their lives. I grew up using this for schoolwork. I'm very fortunate to have this laptop when I was in middle school and when internet in general isn't as heavy to run. For certain people, they have much better things to spend on than expensive computers or laptops. Unfortunately, we're living in a digital age where we genuinely need computers as time goes on, and we need them to work properly for all sorts of work. School works, office works, graphic design, media production, content creation, streaming, video conference, all of that is getting more and more essential as time goes on, and we need computers that can actually work. People are already screwed in the economy thanks to insert current year happenings, and Windows is only gonna screw people more with this mentality. For so many people, time is money, and they simply cannot work efficiently with unresponsive and laggy computers that run so bad, even their mobile phones run better. Windows should at least find a way to optimize itself to run at the very least decently in older systems without the needs of running tweaks that not a lot of your average users understand, or at the very least make a light version that runs on lower tier hardwares. But they won't do that. They instead have that arbitrary TPM nonsense. Yes, it's more secure to have newer systems. Yes, it's more secure to have those newer systems to include newer security protocols, but anyone who uses older systems will get screwed and have to find ways to bypass it, which thankfully isn't that hard, or scalp for TPM parts, which you'd rather save that money to buy a good laptop or PC anyway. This is why I hate Windows. I hate Windows because as time goes on, it's starting to turn into Mac. As time goes on, Windows will only accept those who have lots of money, modern rigs, good rigs, and abandon those who have crappy ones, even though those are the ones that most people can afford. And even to the people who have good rigs, they're not very happy with the direction that Windows is taking, and myself included. The laptop that I have right there as my main rig is not the only computer that I have to deal with, because I am also the nearest computer technician guy that my family and my workplace can reach. A lot of them have slow computers, and they're forced to run Windows on a mechanical hard drive. The least I can offer them is to upgrade to an SSD, but even then, this had a Samsung SSD on it and it still runs like crap. It's not always a guarantee that it's gonna be a good experience. Now, thankfully, PCs like the HP Mini don't dominate the lowest of lowest tier in current year. I don't recommend anyone to get this laptop unless they're genuinely nostalgic on it or they think they can reuse it for specific purposes, or if they just want to write notes on it, in which case, well, you can get this one for like what, 70 to 90 bucks on eBay. So I decided to grab a used laptop that I think should be able to represent the current year's standards of a potato. This is the Acer Aspire ES11. This laptop is going to be my new work laptop. I had a work laptop before, but it was broken, unfortunately. And poof, this is quite the potato. Celeron, 2 gigs of RAM, 500 gig hard drive, absolute potato. I got this laptop in the used market for about $150. I know for a fact that Windows 10 would never ever run well on this machine, and my suspicions were confirmed. This thing is stuck on a boot circle for what feels like decades. Now, I am not gonna run this thing on Windows 10 with that spec, let alone Windows 11. So, in anticipation, I upgraded the RAM. Now it's 10 gigabyte, 2 gigs on board with one 8 gig stick. I replaced the hard drive with my 2 terabyte ADATA SU800 SSD. Overkill, but I had that lying around doing nothing, so I might as well install it there. Just pretend as if this is a budget SSD. So let's say that you bought something like this and you upgraded it with one 8 gig stick of DDR3 RAM. I bought this one for around $40. And let's pretend that this is a 240 gig SSD, which you can find for around $40 in the market. So make it an additional $80 investment at the top of the $150 investment for the laptop. So that's $230 to turn this laptop into a semi-decent one. Not a bad price. It must be able to run Windows okay, right? Nope. No, it can't. It runs Windows 11 horribly, like really awfully laggy. And this is the OS that Microsoft will force you to upgrade in the next coming years. To show you how horrible this experience is, this thing consumes 2.5 gigs of RAM after a fresh install. That's more than 2 gigs of RAM that this PC came with. It's downloading a bunch of updates and it just spikes the CPU to 100%. It's as if Windows looks at this laptop and say, yup, this is a potato, alright. We're gonna stress the crap out of it just after you installed it because we hate you. What is this garbage? Celeron? We're not gonna run on that. There you go, that's what we're talking about. Core i7 RTX graphics, 32 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte no, 3.6 terabyte, 3.6 terabyte SSD. That laptop alone cost $1,700, and that's not counting the SSDs and the RAMs that I bought for the previous laptop that I had. I had to go in depth for this laptop, and I had to work my hard ass off to pay for all of it. I can barely afford this laptop, but there are millions of others who can't even afford it. This laptop over here is what I think most people would be able to afford at their most bare minimum. People would kill for laptops that cost around $300 that runs anything other than Chrome OS. And yet Windows will screw you. They won't like it if you're running on a potato. You need to pay more for the privilege of running it well. So yeah, for those of you who are on a tight budget or have absolute potato PCs, Windows is screwing you. Don't hope that you can run any of the newer Windows on it, and don't hope that you can get anything done. So, what can we do? So we just abandon this laptop? Is this a total waste of money for everyone involved? Me especially? No, not at all. I'm not giving up on this laptop yet, and neither should a lot of you people. Oh yes, I do give up on Windows, but Windows is not the only operating system in the world. Let's install something else on this. Yeah, right. It's Linux, guys. Seriously, ever since Windows 11 screwed the pooch, I went into a Linux rabbit hole. I downloaded so many freaking distros and I tried them left and right using virtual machine just to find out which one that I like the most. Linux has a bunch of flavors called distros. The most famous one is Ubuntu. Chances are you've definitely heard about this one, but there are actually many iterations of Ubuntu that I recommend more. I tried a bunch of distros and my personal favorite for beginners is Kubuntu. Kubuntu is amazing, and KDE Plasma desktop environment is also amazing and surprisingly lightweight. Linux Mint using Cinnamon is also amazing. I highly recommend that. If you have an old Mac and aren't used to it with Windows, Elementary OS is the one that I recommend. But if you're using a potato PC like this with dual-core, dual-thread Celeron, use Ubuntu. This over here is running Ubuntu. You got all the basic stuff, start menu, everything. It's amazing. That's my personal recommendation if you want a good lightweight distro, but also have decent features and some nice eye candy tweaks. If you want something even lighter, go with Lubuntu. Keep in mind that the lighter the distros you chose, the less features and softwares you will have out of the box. And that's why I chose Ubuntu. I think Ubuntu has the most balance between lightweight performance and also softwares and features. So just to show you that Linux is amazing, I took out the SSD and the RAM and put back the 500 gig hard drive. I installed Lubuntu on it. And guess what? It's actually running okay. I mean, the apps don't open as soon as I want them to, and the reason is because the hard drive that came with the laptop is actually dying and needs to be replaced. But then again, I personally don't recommend having a hard drive as a disk for your OS in current year, for both Linux and especially Windows. I recommend an SSD. Even a 120 gig one will be a significant improvement. But even so, this is miles better than when it has Windows 11 on an SSD and an upgraded RAM. Think about it. This machine with 2 gigs of RAM and 500 gig dying mechanical hard drive running Lubuntu is smashing Windows to pieces, even when it has 10 gigs of RAM and 2 terabyte SSD. Even with the RAM and SSD upgrade, Windows uses 2.5 gig RAM on an update. That's a lot of RAM. This thing consumes less than a gig after a fresh install and is also running updates. Windows, what are you doing? For every basic task that you can do in any operating system, you can do them on Linux. You got the browser, which you can use to do some browsing. You got the Office suites that came with the distro that allows you to do anything you like in Office. If you're more comfortable doing them online, yes, you can do them online as well. And most importantly, no need to wait for some stupid driver installations. Everything works straight out of the box. Audio, video, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, even the laptop shortcuts like the volume or the brightness, they all work great. That said, if your laptop has an NVIDIA graphics card, it's gonna be a little bit tricky to get it to work. Radeon will run just fine, but NVIDIA is a little tricky to get it working, so keep that in mind. So now let's take it to the next level. I installed the RAM and SSD upgrades, and I installed Ubuntu this time. And after all of that, congratulations, Acer, you are now my personal work PC. With a budget of $300, you can get yourself a really good work PC by grabbing a used Celeron potato like this and install Ubuntu or Lubuntu on it. And if you have more budget, you can upgrade the RAM or storage to be SSD and you can get a genuinely good experience. I actually went to work with this laptop and I do all the things that I typically do at work: browsing, typing, making documents, making assignments, and even some light graphic design here and there. All of that basic stuff, I can do it here with no problems. I am stunned by its performance. I am stunned by its functionality in general. It feels like I gave this laptop a new life, a new purpose that makes it so amazing to use. Fun fact, most parts of this video are written on Linux using LibreOffice Write, and it's 100% compatible with my Microsoft Word document. Granted, the road isn't smooth. I'm not gonna pretend that it is. This laptop is actually notorious for not being able to boot to Linux. The only way I can boot into Linux is if I trick the PC into thinking that it's booting into Windows, and I have to manually modify the EFI boot manager. Thankfully, it's only just one command, but some people are gonna get confused by it. The details for this whole mess is right there. You can find the link down below alongside many other links. There are some activities that are straight up laggy on this laptop especially. It's a dual-core, dual-thread Celeron, so I expect it to not be able to multitask very well. And boy, they do not multitask very well. YouTube runs okay in this one until I decide to multitask and switch to other tabs and browse in the other tab, and then it just gets laggy. Not super horrible, but not ideal for multitasking in general. But hey, still better than Windows' experience. Zoom by itself actually works okay, even if there are lots of participants, so there's that.
This is how the camera looks like on the Acer Aspire ES11. Not exactly the best looking, but hey, this is what you get.
Installing softwares on this one can be quite tricky. The VPN that I use is private internet access, and it's 100% compatible with Linux. Thank you, PIA, I love you. That said, installing this one requires me to run it on the terminal. I can't just click and run the file that I downloaded, but thankfully it's nothing too complicating, and I actually kind of like having to install stuff using the terminal. There are obviously things that you have to sacrifice on Linux. You obviously cannot run games on this. Not that Linux cannot run games. They absolutely can, even if the success rate is a hit or miss. It's just that the Celeron CPU is not designed for any heavyweight games. Not that I want a game on this PC, it's a potato PC that's good enough for work and script writing and browsing, and that's all I'm gonna ever use it for. But that still doesn't stop me from trying. It's safe to say that Doom can run on anything these days, so Doom running on this PC should be no surprise to anyone. But the real question is, can it run Project Brutality?
Yo! No way! No way! Yo! Oh boy! Oh boy! Yeah, baby! No way! Oh, no way! Oh, it's a little laggy. Oh, it's laggy. But yo! Oh! Yes, it can, baby! Oh, baby! Yes! It's a little laggy, but it's not the worst thing. It's somewhat survivable, or at least on this particular level. Yeah, they're fighting each other. Come on, just get over with.
How about Unreal Tournament using Proton on Steam?
Yo, this is playable. Ow! What? I'm not the one the team say. No. Whoa! I defeated you. Where's that? Oh, you're yeah. Just because you're invisible, I can still beat you.
Next, Counter-Strike, which has a Linux port alongside the original Half-Life. Can it run Counter-Strike?
Whoa! Whoa! Yo, this is playable.
Lead on, sir.
Roger that. Yeah, this is 100% playable. Ooh, yes, baby.
There's one left. Ramp.
Yeah. Oh, yes, baby. That was close.
Game emulators work really well. Don't really. RetroArch is available on pretty much all sorts of Linux app stores, and it can just play all sorts of retro games. Plug in any controller, and all of these retro games are just on my fingertips. It's amazing. While we sailors in the 7 seas can't get the Windows games, we still can get the ROMs of these games and play them just fine. And that's why I absolutely love Linux. The idea that Linux can just straight up resurrect, repurpose, and revive an old laptop like this is straight up amazing. And that's even without the help of the RAM and the SSD. You can install Ubuntu or Lubuntu on your potato PC with a hard drive, and you're most likely going to have a decent experience, better than Windows at least. I still recommend getting more RAM and more SSD. Even a 120 gig SSD is enough, and they're cheap these days. And for the environmentally conscious, it's much friendlier to recycle potato PCs and laptops like this rather than buying an entirely new one. And thanks to this machine being on Linux, I don't have to deal with stupid proprietary nonsense, and I can customize it however I like. I can customize the desktop environment that it came with, the display manager, all sorts of things. It's incredibly customizable. Oh yeah, that's right, this video is about me hating Windows, and I'm just geeking on Linux for a bit. To sum it up, I hate Windows. Not not because it's not functional. It's functional most of the time, and I actually still main Windows on my main rig because there are apps on Windows that I am just infinitely more effective and efficient at. I also play a lot of video games, and it just so happens that most game developers develop to Windows first. I hate Windows because of their exclusive elitist mentality. I hate Windows because they're leaving over everyone else who don't have an expensive or premium device. To everyone else out there who doesn't have premium devices and has to stick with what they have because they don't have a lot of money to afford new computers, Windows is practically screwing you over for it. Linux is your best friend in that scenario.